booties for black girl nerds.
Riley, I want to start with you. I screened this at South by Southwest, and through the Q&A, I learned that there was a Sasquatch boot camp, which I find to be very fascinating, that you guys had trained for the film. So can you kind of share with us what that whole process entailed?
That process entailed learning how to move, learning how to eat like a Sasquatch, learning how to talk like a Sasquatch or grunt like a Sasquatch. Um, it was like just us figuring out what, we all wanted to be living in the same world and be doing, moving the same and speaking the same language. So it was kind of just making that up, which was really fun. And then we had to, I think we had to like figure out who our characters were, and then we also had to figure out how we would interact with one another. So it was like there was a lot going on, and and then how to eat, and they brought in a bunch of vegetables and fruit and things, and we kind of tested out different ways to eat and how much chewing to do, how much to let fall out of our mouth. Like it was like just figuring it all out.
That's so fascinating. I feel like there's going to be like a cult of people that's going to want to learn about this boot camp and sign up for classes. Um, Jesse, over to you. This film has no dialogue. So how descriptive was the script for you? Did you get enough information on how to emote your character with blocking? How did you get that information to be able to interact in these scenes?
Oh yeah, no, thanks for asking. I really do think like if people can get the script online or if they publish it somewhere, it is so brilliant because the movie, as you're watching it as an audience, you imagine like how is this like how did this come to fruition like a regular movie? And if people read the script, they realize it's so brilliantly made and so funny. I was sitting there reading these scenes. As you say, there's like no dialogue, so you're not seeing like characters' names and word and dialogue, but you are like you understand exactly what's happening. It's like they walk over here, one conveys to the other that this is happening, so they all come over. It's like descriptions like that. But there are scenes in the movie that are so funny, and I remember sitting with this script that has no dialogue, which is my usual like thing that I like the most, and just in tears reading it because it was so funny. And it's the same in the movie. It's like once you watch the movie, like after 5 minutes of watching the movie, you settle in and it seems like any other movie with people.
It's so fascinating. Christophe, over to you. Throughout this film, we hear these tonal pitches, shifts, and grunts. Tell me about the creative process of aligning that language together for this species of Sasquatch.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of collaboration in and during the Sasquatch boot camp, we had Lauren Eric Salam that came. Jesse had worked with him in the past, and he's a movement coach that studied under Marcel Marceau, and he was just brilliant and helped us. It just kind of like expanded our minds to how to move, but then also the vocalizations and how like where the sounds come from, if they're lower, if they're more guttural, if they're kind of like in your throat and higher pitched. We spent a lot of time in this office building in Eureka, California, howling and barking and making these sounds. And we also were informed by the videos that Nathan and David sent over, because they sent over some videos of apes interacting and fighting and eating and lounging and just living lives. And so you could glean from those videos like if there's distress, it kind of might come from like a higher pitched area. If it's kind of like more subdued, maybe it kind of comes from a lower area.
Indeed. Well, I wish I had so much more to ask you guys, but they're wrapping me. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to Black Girl Nerds. As I said, I screened this at South by. Perfect audience to screen this with. It was an emotional roller coaster. I laughed, I cried at some points. Brilliant film, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jamie.
Take care. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. I'm going to start with you, Nathan. You also star in this film as well as directing it. So, was it challenging for you as a filmmaker, or was it easier for you directing the scenes as well as being a performer in this film?
Um, yeah. Dave and I have kind of always worked in this capacity. Sometimes David's in front of the camera more than I am, and just happened to be I was a perfect build for a Sasquatch, so it made sense for me to do this one. But yeah, I don't know if it presented any challenges. I mean, we've been living with this script David wrote for a very long time, and always have been riffing on it and talking about it. So I think it was exciting to get more people involved and work with more actors, and kind of it just kind of be on set with everybody. I think it helped that we have had that experience together, and that he knew what my performance was going to sort of be, and then the other actors were kind of like able to follow that lead a little bit, and less of like directing as what you would normally do, and more just kind of like collaborating as kind of like these creatures.
It does help that you have the height of a Sasquatch, so
Yeah.
it does. David, over to you. I find it fascinating that your team worked with real animals during the production of this film. Did you find that working with real animals to be difficult, or were they pretty well trained?
Well, they just were. They just it were. It is neither. They just were what they were. I mean, I think, when we've worked with animals, I think our approach is to cast them and work with them adapting to what they want to do. I mean, and so it's just some of them were just captured naturally in nature, and then the others it's just like built around what they wanted to do, which was eat usually. And so a big part of the film was really kind of grounding it with a certain naturalism, which is why a lot of times with creature movies, you're filming on a sound stage in a really controlled environment with really controlled lighting, and with this, in order to kind of ground it with a certain naturalism, we shot on location, and in the redwoods in Northern California, with natural light, kind of a 70s feel to it, and then the same goes with the animals, just letting it feel like you're immersed in the natural world.
What's really remarkable about this film is there's no dialogue, and there's this National Geographic kind of aesthetic of this film. It feels like you're watching one of those kind of programs. Was the goal to give that film that kind of aesthetic and not have the traditional narrative that you would see in a film with speaking parts?
Yeah, we didn't, because I think the more stylized, which we've done with some other things, but for this, the more stylized it was, the more to kind of pull you out of the kind of feel of a real world, and everything. We wanted to do everything with this to kind of legitimize these creatures and make them relatable in this kind of natural setting. So and then just like, because we were shooting in remote locations, not on sets or anything like that. It was so much of it is how you do a documentary, where you're kind of adapting to the elements. I mean, you plan as much as possible, and you adapt to the reality of whether it's sunny or rainy or whatnot.
Nathan, over to you. Because there's really some humorous moments in this film. Were anybody, when they were dressing up in the costumes, decided to be a prankster on set and like go into a local diner with the full costume and just act crazy on set?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we were pretty remote. We actually didn't run into a lot of people when we were filming. It was a lot of fun being in those costumes. It was grueling because they were so heavy and physically taxing. But we did. I mean, every day, like we were just all laughing about what we were doing and the kind of scenes we were filming. But I think one day we had a jogger, and we were up in Humboldt County, which is Northern California. And that's sort of where the epicenter and the highest concentration of Bigfoot sightings are. And a jogger ran by the set one day during a kind of
crazier
a
moment.
crazier moment in the film, and she was pretty nonplussed with it all. I feel like they've seen it all up there. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, once, a couple days, like any shoot, like a couple days in, or even maybe one day in, just everything is kind of normalized, and so just both at first it's all wild, and then it's just routine. That you have these anatomically correct Sasquatches, hanging out doing their thing.
Just another Sasquatch and on the trail. No big deal.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to Black Girl Nerds. I really appreciate it. I love this film so much. So thank you so much.
Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
So glad you liked it. Appreciate it.